Do you respond to setbacks, challenges, stresses in a way that helps your health and well-being? Or does it sometimes, do your responses sometimes undermine it? And I think we all do a bit of both. There's a lot of great stuff in life, but there's certainly a lot of the yucky stuff as well. And I think that it's important, as we have this accelerated world and this time of accelerated change, that we really develop strategies for resilience. And I've spent the last 2 or 3 years researching resilience and developing a program and coaching around resilience to help people to better manage the stresses and strains and conflicts in their working lives, but also in their lives in general. And I have taken a lot from the field of positive psychology, from the strengths-based approach, from the fields of neuroscience, because I wanted to really look at what really works and what has evidence behind it, not just, some anecdotally based, kind of program. And so the first thing that I'm going to talk about in this video, and I will do a few videos on resilience, because I think it's a really important thing, especially for today's workplace and today's life. But Dr. Martin Seligman from the University of Pennsylvania is the psychologist associated with really birthing positive psychology. And he refers to what he calls the explanatory styles. And he says your explanatory style can go a long way to helping your health and well-being when you are faced with setbacks and stresses and conflicts or whatever the situation is. And I talk to people about, it's almost like there was an iPod in your head. So when something happens, what song do you press play for? And Martin Seligman would say the first song to press play on would be to say, this will pass, this is transient. Now the situation might be a more permanent one, but with every day that passes in a situation that we're dealing with, we get a bit more used to it. We get a bit more used to how we can, how we can change it, how we can deal with it. And sometimes the situations will pass. It may be a work situation, it may be a family conflict, and you know that probably, in a couple of months or a couple of years or even a couple of weeks, the situation will be changed. At work, you may not be working with those same people. In a family, often those things do work themselves out. So the first song to press play on is This Will Pass. The second song to press play on is It's Just Restricted to This Situation. So if you have a conflict with a particular family member over, how you should, raise your children, or if you have a conflict at work over being able to just, as a manager, just find that when you're supervising a certain person, it just seems like they just don't seem to understand what you're saying and they just kind of do their own thing. If you see it as it's just this situation, it doesn't mean that every family member that you talk to is going to disagree with your child-rearing philosophy. And so it doesn't mean you're wrong or that the whole family disapproves of you. In most cases, at work, just because there's 1 or 2 people that you find it really difficult to delegate work to or to have them understand or do what you've requested, doesn't mean that you're a bad manager, doesn't mean you're not going to be able to delegate to people. It's just restricted to that situation. Sometimes the conflicts and stresses do point to areas that we need to develop. And that's a different thing. But it shouldn't be a discouraging thing. It should be seen as an opportunity for growth. And the third song is, I have control over some aspects of this. I may not control the situation, but I can control how I respond. And if I look really closely, there are probably things that I can do to change it, or at least change the songs that are playing in my head that will then help me to get to a more healthy place, and perhaps a place where I'm more able to think about what the solutions are. I often say to people, ask yourself 2 questions. One is, when was this less of a problem or no problem? And really think about what your responses to that are, because there will be clues in that you can use to address whatever the situation is that you're in. And the other question is, what is currently working? What is good about the situation? Now, there may be a lot of bad, but usually there are at least 1 or 2 things in there that you can say, well, actually, this is working pretty well. And if you are acknowledging that and you think about that, what you actually are doing is that you are also, you're kind of training your mind and your brain to actually start to see some of those positives, and you are giving yourself a different place to stand. Remember, resilience is not a performance thing, it's an invitation. We all, apply the tools sometimes really well and find that we're really helped. Sometimes we just find that we're weighted under. So, hopefully you'll accept the invitation to develop your resilience strategies, and I look forward to sharing a bit more in future videos.